Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and there are a few things I'd like to talk about. First of all, in the past day or so, I went over 6,000 subs. I appreciate that. And those of you new to my channel and wonder what my channel is all about, anything that has to do with ancient history, I talk about. Ancient texts, ancient monuments, little-known sites, well-known sites, it really doesn't matter to me. I have many playlists that have to do with many different aspects of ancient history, and I just encourage you, I guess, to check out my channel and my playlists if you're interested in more. But I always appreciate comments. Even though I don't reply, I don't have time to reply to all the comments, I do read them all, so I always appreciate comments. But one thing people have commented on a lot recently is they have asked me my credentials. Where do you have a history degree? Where did you study at? Blah, blah, blah. You know, and thank goodness, no. I don't have a degree. I'm not stuck to any specific ideology or belief. I just look at what the ancients tell us, and then I talk about it. My videos aren't that exciting, but you're just getting my view of ancient history. And you know, if I had a degree, that would just be a nightmare. Imagine researching, and no matter what you found, you had to stick to a specific, boring, lame view of history that, frankly, people are getting bored with. So no, I don't have a degree or anything like that, thank goodness. So, getting on to the next topic, I have been asked a lot of questions about giants, and that is a topic that comes up quite a bit, specifically with the mound builders of ancient America. And those of you new to my channel, about a year and a half ago, I made a whole series of videos on ancient sites in the United States. And what I found absolutely shocked me, and it kind of offended me that I hadn't heard of any of this stuff, but I have many videos on ancient America in this playlist, and I will leave a link for this below. Now this image comes from one of the more famous giant stories coming from ancient tales, and that is the story of David and Goliath. And I think how tall Goliath is said to be has been exaggerated if you look at the ancient text and what it actually tells us. But anyway, do I think giants or people that were very tall existed on the planet at one time? I think that is entirely possible. I have no problem with that. But I have a problem with the term giants. I did a few videos on some tales of giants coming from ancient America, most famously probably the Lovelock cave mummies from northern Nevada. And when I really researched that, the initial tales from the people who originally found the site, these skeletons were maybe 6'8" on average. And are those giants? No, they are just as tall as some of the taller humans we have on Earth today. And is it possible that giant skeletons were unearthed in ancient America and the Smithsonian did away with them? That is a story that is so hard to get any concrete proof of, but I think that is entirely possible too, for whatever reason. And I just haven't researched that maybe as thoroughly as I should to talk about it with any sort of intelligence. But I think the whole Smithsonian cover-up is entirely possible. But the stories of the skeletons that you can confirm, and there are a bunch of them in my Ancient America playlist, the skeletons are maybe 6'6" to a little bit over 7 feet tall, and those are not giants. Those are just as the tallest people we have on Earth today. And, you know, back 10,000 years ago, was there a race of much larger people? How large, we have no concrete proof of, but I think it's entirely possible that humans were possibly larger back 10,000 years ago. We have beavers that were as large as small bears are today, and we have bears that were as large as cargo vans back in the day, and it seems like everything back then was a little bit larger. So maybe the conditions on Earth allowed humans to grow a little taller, but a lot of the skeletons that people see on the internet, maybe 20 feet tall, all of those are hoaxes. There is not really one of those that has been verified to be a true picture. So, possible? Yes, I think it's entirely possible. We had a race of smaller people in Indonesia found a few years back, and people said, cute, they had no problem accepting that. But as soon as the topic of giants come up, people either, sensationalize it sometimes, or are totally, turned off by the term giants and won't even, accept it with an open mind. So those are just a few of my views on giants. Now I want to read about the Nephilim from Graham Hancock's book, Magicians of the Gods. Now the term Nephilim has come up in a lot of the questions I've been asked about the giants. And of course that comes from the biblical verse. And it says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of gods went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. And that just has spawned, speculation on who the Nephilim were. But one of the main sources for people's accepted knowledge comes from Zecharia Sitchin. And I have talked about Zecharia Sitchin in a few of my videos. They were some of the first books I ever read on ancient history, and they were extremely difficult to read back then when I didn't really know much about the gods and the Sumerian gods and stuff like that. They were really difficult to read, but I did learn a lot. And I believe in the Lost Realms, I believe was the name of the book. I first read about Tiwanaku and Pumapunku in Bolivia. So I did appreciate his writings, but when I went to research what he said about Nibiru and the gold and some of his findings, and especially on the Nephilim, there was not really one other scholar that would confirm his findings, and he really wouldn't debate anybody on the subject, and it all seemed pretty suspicious to me. But Graham Hancock goes into a little bit about this in his book, Magicians of the Gods, and I will leave a link for the book below. It's an excellent book, and I recommend it to everybody. It says this: an amazing amount of credulous nonsense has proliferated around these verses in recent years on the internet, much of it deriving from the late Zecharia Sitchin's science fiction novels, notably the Earth Chronicles series, which he successfully passed off to the public as serious factual studies. I've already touched in Chapter 13 on Sitchin's misrepresentation of Baalbek, and while I'm not saying that everything he wrote was fiction, he did throw in some quite valuable and interesting facts. His overall body of work is marred by enough blatant fabrications and fantasy to call for caution rather than immediate trusting acceptance on the part of his readers. His treatment of the subject of the Nephilim is a case in point. Claiming to be an expert in biblical language, he asks, what then does the term Nephilim mean? And he spells it with an F. Stemming from the Semitic root NFL, to be cast down, it means exactly what it says. It means those who were cast down upon earth, according to Sitchin. But there's a problem. Sitchin assumes Nephilim comes from the Hebrew word Naphal, spelled N-A-P-H-A-L, which usually means to fall. Then he forces the meaning to come down onto the word, creating his to come down from above translation. In the form we find it in the Hebrew Bible, if the word Nephilim came from the Hebrew word Naphal, it would not be spelled as we find it. The form Nephilim cannot mean fallen ones. Likewise, Nephilim does not mean those who fall or those who fall away. The only way in Hebrew to get Nephilim from Naphal, by the rules of Hebrew morphology, would be to presume a noun spelled Nephil, N-A-P-H-I-L, and then pluralize it. I say presume, since this noun does not exist in the biblical Hebrew. It says, however, in Aramaic, the noun Naphal, with an A at the end, N-A-P-H-I-L, with an A at the end, it does exist. Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible has translated this to be gigantus, or giant. So that is maybe how the Nephilim got their giant translation. But I believe these people were just human, maybe a different race, possibly a little taller race. And the main problem, it seems, that in the Bible that they had with these people was they're having plenty of sex with their women, a perfectly human thing to be upset with. And I think certain things that happened in way ancient history that the writers of the Old Testament used, they just had problems with certain people of different cultures, like the Egyptians in the Exodus story, and obviously the Watchers or the Nephilim from this story, and they wrote about them in a certain biblical narrative that was kind of negative and kind of sensationalized, and that is where I think the whole Nephilim deal goes. So I just wanted to say that. So that's just a little bit of what Graham Hancock writes about in Magicians of the Gods, and he writes about this for about 6 or 7 pages, and it's pretty interesting, and he really presents his work very well, and once again I fully recommend the book. And those of you who are looking for some videos on so-called giants as they are described in the title, I recommend Jim Vieira and Hugh Newman. They do some excellent research in the American Northeast, and I will try to leave a few links for those videos below. Now, just to wrap this up, could the whole giants thing be just people of stature, people maybe of great knowledge? That is, I guess, slightly possible. But it also says this in the Old Testament, and these are scouts reporting to Moses, for all this is worth. It says, "All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." So I think it is entirely possible that this Nephilim was a race of people that were taller, that seemed much larger in size to the average height of the normal people of the day. And could these have been a race of people that were around at the end of the last ice age, and the Nephilim were just the survivors of that race, whoever they were? I think that is a possibility. But are you ever going to learn about so-called giants or the finding of really large skeletons this day and age? Well, there hasn't been much that we can really bank on as far as absolute proof. And the people with degrees, they are stuck in a certain view of history, and if there is findings, the people who are in charge of our history certainly won't report it. And thank goodness I'm not a person with a degree, so I can just read what the ancients tell us and talk about it with you people. I hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a nice day.